Good morning to you. It's Picken, CEO and founder of Migrate. And as a caged animal in lockdown, we are out for a morning ride. So this is my beautiful son, Jonty, and you can see my hairs all over the place because we're out for a morning ride. So it's a magnificent morning here in Eisner, and I wanted to basically talk about this weekly wealth insight, which is around currency and the impact that currency has on your wealth. So a good example would be that in 2011, the Rand was 677 to the dollar. And today it's traveling up and down around 1850 to the dollar. Now that's a 274% decrease in 9 years, or roughly 30% a year. Now the important thing here is that people don't realize this. Now in my book, Property Going Global, I actually did an analysis where you've got CPI, which is your consumer price index, and I actually did an analysis to take into account your worldwide wealth, okay, and the impact that currency has and inflation has on your global index. So, we call it your global wealth index. And what's really important is that actually the number was at 29% year on year for 30 years. Now it's really interesting because when you consider that for the last 9 years it's been 30%, the numbers are pretty similar. The dollar has, come Johns, let me finish please. The dollar has devalued, the Rand has devalued by 6% year on year against the dollar for the last 30 years. And, so these are consistent things that keep happening. And what's really important if you're wealthy and you're wanting to, most people are only thinking about how to create wealth. But what you really need to realize is that you also need to protect your wealth. There's no point in being a gazillionaire in Rands if it's worth like $100. And trust me, the people in Zimbabwe know what I'm talking about. And so you have to be building your wealth, and being a global citizen is someone who takes that into account. Because if you want to send your kid to university at Harvard or Oxford, if you want to go take your kids to Disneyland, or you want to go skiing in France, you need to be able to earn foreign currency, let alone, buying a beer or a cappuccino. And so, or going on an international holiday. And those are all the things of being a global citizen. It's the freedom. And so you really need to understand the impacts of currency. And so with that, in my book, Property Going Global, Chapter 2 was written by a guy called James Painter. Now, I recommend that you go and get the book. You can click on the link below and you can read all about it. Now, I've worked with James for many years. He has an accuracy of over 80%, which is amazing. He's got a modeling system, and I always found it interesting because when the president fired the finance minister, I thought that the currency would go in the one direction, but it actually went in the other direction. Or Brexit, or, the whole coronavirus. You really need to know what's going on. Now, do you need to know what's going to happen tomorrow morning? No, not necessarily, because as an investor, you should be worrying about long-term trends, not short-term trends. Sorry, one thing I wanted to point out to you was just look, there won't be any voice notes over it, but I'm just going to give you some of the predictive stuff that James does and some of the modeling and analysis. And if you come to the webinar on Thursday evening, he'll explain how it works and why it's so accurate, no matter what is happening in the economy, politically, with coronavirus, whatever it is. And he's got predictions for the Rand, the US dollar, the pound, the Aussie dollar, the euro. Coming at the facts. And so we're actually holding a webinar for our inner circle on the 28th of May, which is next Thursday. And if you're not part of the inner circle, you can pay to join us, and you can click on the link below. Now, why this is important is that you cannot get wealthy if you do not have a mindset of being a global citizen. You've heard me talk about Ray Dalio and how you have to diversify across assets, across countries, and currencies. And so, many people talk about how the dollar is going to devalue, massively because of all the quantitative easing that the government is pumping in, all the credit that the government is pumping into the economy, and all the debt that it's taking on. Many people are talking that you should be in pounds, you should be in euros. What about Aussie dollars? Stop making decisions based on your gut feel and make it based on facts, fundamentals, and models. I'm going to be running through some modeling systems which I've used for 20 years, and by the way, they were endorsed by Clem Sunter, who endorsed my book on those modeling systems. I'm going to share those modeling systems on this webinar. And I leave you with a final thought. It reminds me of 2013. We were having an event. We had 200 people in the room. And the Rand was about 880 at the time. and we were helping people invest in property in America, and you were buying property for 40, 50 cents on the dollar. It was an absolute no-brainer. And James was doing a live presentation, and he said in 3 months, the rand will go over 10 rand to the dollar. And I remember asking him, what level of probability? And he said 80%. I can't remember exactly. It was either 80 or 90%. Like, it was a really high number. And most people in the room did nothing, because they remembered 2 years ago the rand was at 6 rand to the dollar, and they were waiting for it to get back to 6 rand to the dollar. And of 200 people in the room, only one person took action. And yet within 3 months, it went over 10 rand to the dollar, and it's never ever come back. As I said, it's currently 18.50, and it's got more chance of getting to 30 than it does of getting below 10. And so my question to you is, are you taking into account currency, and what are you doing? Because it's one of the most important things that you need to look at if you want to be a global citizen. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends. Please share this. Whether you've got 100 rand in your bank, $100 in your bank, or $100 million in the bank, you have to take into account currency. Being a global citizen is purely a mindset thing. You have to start thinking like a global citizen, and currency is a very important component of that. So with my beautiful son, it's time for us to go riding.
I'm 8 years old.
You are 8 years old. It's time for us to go riding, and hopefully at the age of 8, he's been investing in different countries, different asset classes, and different currencies since the age of 5. And so this behind you is one of the youngest global citizens in the world. Have an awesome week. Cheers.